essentially the French Allied natives that were in this woods here were actually, I'm going to start that again. Hey everybody, we are doing another 200-point battle report for Musket and Tomahawks. What we have is a mixed French force against an all-native force today. 200 points, so a smaller game on a 48, roughly by 48 by 48 table. I'll go over the Indian force first. Essentially we have 3 native units. One of them are French Indian War veterans. Another one is a regular unit of 6 natives. Both of these are hidden, and so there are 2 tokens and another token. One of those up there, one of those is a dummy token, so I don't know which one that is. We have 2 leaders, one here and one right there. And essentially that unit's not hidden up there. It's just a regular unit of natives. Now we are using side plots today. This is the leader, but this one right here next to him is actually a civilian leader that through the side plot needs to create a truce pact with this leader. So they're actually having discussions during this game. That was the purpose of their meeting in this location, and there is a mechanic within the rule set to determine whether those discussions are successful, and he has to remain alive at the end of the game to get the side plot and have the discussion, the truce successful, which requires a roll at the end of each round, and there's a mechanic in the rules. The natives are actually also doing slaughter again, so they need to fulfill their primary objective. They need to kill civilians that are actually in this 10 of them in this main cabin in the back, not in this building here. And what we have on the French side, it's a mixed force. We have a unit of 10 regulars with an officer behind them. Nothing special about the officer, no traits or anything like that. We have a unit of corps de bas, and so they are Canadian militia that have been upgraded, and then as well we have a hidden unit of natives that are starting on the board. They're just right back there, but their location is right there. Now there is only one of them, so there is no dummy awarded. There, you need at least 2 hidden units to get that additional third where you're not sure. This just gives them bonuses to prevent the opponent from spotting. So, while shooting. So, on the French side, the primary objective is engagement. So, at any time where 2/3 of the opponent is models are removed at the end of the round, then that's when you get your primary objective. The side plot that was rolled was a little bit conflicting. It's called something to the effect of non-engagement. And so even though in order to win you need to essentially be dominant in killing your opponent's models, the officer's side plot is to not engage the enemy. And as long as my opponent engages me first, then I'm allowed to do whatever, and I've achieved my side plot. And so it's kind of interesting because it's a little conflicting, but I think it'll be just fine, and we'll just see how it goes. So beyond that, like I said, we're doing side plots. We are doing 1 random event card in each round is the way we've chosen to do it, and we will come back at the end of round 1. Hey everybody, we are at the end of round 1, and we've had a really action-packed game. Things happen really quick in Musket and Tomahawks, particularly in a 200-point game because you're on a 48-inch table. Essentially what's happened here is we had on the French side both the hidden unit of natives and the corps de bois moved up to here. Natives got an early boost in movement on the French side. Did take a shot at the regular unit of natives, which have behind them the leader and the civilian advisor, did actually end up killing 2 of the natives of that unit, and they recoiled backwards. Later, through the forward voice card, they got a bit of a boost and came back in the woods. On this side, we did have the regulars had moved up with their movement actions and forward boys. These groups of natives that were the 2 tokens over there ended up being both the native units, where the dummy token was over there. And so this group of natives first came up and pressed through here. They did fire and kill 1 of the regulars, but they had no reaction in the morale, so they held fast. They fired back. This unit used their guerrilla trait to sort of move and sidestep out of a shorter range into a longer range. Because of being in cover as natives and out of range, no shots hit them from the volley of the firing line. This group of the French and Indian War veterans, so the veteran group, did come up and took a shot and missed the firing line, which was a bit unlucky. Lastly, this group over here did take a shot and killed in return 2 natives on this group of 6. And they held fast and did not actually flee at all. And so, that's the end of round 1, and I'm expecting lots of action in round 2. Okay, so we are at the end of round 2, and a lot has happened. So, the big firing line that was here had some amazing shooting from the Indian unit that was in the woods there, and really decimated it between both of these. They ended up recoiling and then strategically moving back, and there's only 3 remaining, into this building to guard the civilians. That native group came around through the building here, through the back windows, and then out the front. And then this group over here really is just tried to take some shot, took some shots like over there, but hasn't moved. The natives that were in the woods here ended up coming up through here after most of the opponent Indian forces' actions were done, and just came up in here and destroyed the remaining unit that was here. But then, and it actually was, they threw tomahawks and then went into melee with the other natives and won. But then they went against the leader single-handedly, and the leader actually drove them back, the last 3. And now they were actually in flight, which really, as soon as their next card comes up, they'll no longer be in flight because it only lasts for a round. But that's what happened there. The Corps de Bois are no longer under vigilance. They came up through here, through the woods, and got into a strategic position up here and fired and killed 1 of the natives there in this group. And so that's where we're at. Lots of action, lots of stuff going on. I didn't mention before that, but the French officer did engage first accidentally, so does not get his side plot. And essentially, so far, the natives have not gotten their side plot yet either. And then we did have another event where the civilians don't trust the officers. The civilians just stayed far back in the room, but then after that, the soldiers came in anyway into the building. So we actually got 2 random events in a row, which is really strange because there's a lot of random events. All right, we will see you at the end of round 3. Hey everybody, we're at the end of round 3. We've had a really bloody round, and it is just really down to the wire. Essentially, there are natives that actually came up through here and attacked the Corps de Bois and won that melee and sent the Corps de Bois running here. I had natives that were running from last round from the chieftain. They attacked the natives that came up through here and lost that melee, even though they attacked them from behind. It was just ridiculous. And then after that, the natives that were remaining wiped out as they were running the remaining Corps de Bois. The leader is actually trailing behind, so we have essentially 2 natives and the leader and the advisor. Over here, it was quite interesting. We had another native leader and this group of natives come from the house, behind the house, the leader and the natives, up here in order to get to the objective and get to the civilians. This line of regulars and the officer were on vigilance inside the building. When the natives came out, they actually went off vigilance and went out with their 2 actions and fired. That firing killed 1 native and sent them in flight that way. And then the leader themselves charged this unit and ended up dying and not killing anybody within the unit as part of that. We had some fire that happened since then, but really I don't think there were any other casualties. We're both fairly devastated in our armies. My opponent wasn't at 2/3 in the last round, just 1 man away from my primary victory of killing 2/3 of his models. And my opponent has not gotten to the civilians yet. My opponent still could get the truce objective, potentially. The secondary objective where I can't. We both are greater than 50% models depleted, so morale cards are thrown into the deck. When a morale card comes up, it can be pretty devastating. Every unit has to take reactions. And so the only other thing that happened is we did have an event where a strong wind came through. If we had folks that were using bows and stuff, it would have affected their trajectory and ability to hit, but for the most part, it didn't really affect the game. So, okay. We'll see you at the end of turn 4. Hey everybody, we're at the end of round 4. The massacre continued, and we had an extremely epic sort of ending. But essentially what happened was, we had some British regulars and the officer here, and the fleeing natives. They did fire into them and caused them to rout off the table. They were able to then go with one of their cards up next, and ended up moving into this building. Civilians had actually moved back. At that time, we had some natives, the leaders that were here, and the natives were right here, the last unit of natives. Unluckily, the French ended up drawing their morale card. The leader did not fail his morale, and he's actually on vigilance right now at the window. The 3 last regulars ran and took off. All the civilians ran and took off. The morale card came out because our forces are extremely depleted, so it's really hard to keep your people here at this point. The officer, the officers then checked their morale. They did not actually stay. The officer Sachem ran. These tested, ran. Then an event card was drawn, and we got the desertion event. And basically, you have to test for another reaction, all units of 3 or less. These ran further, and so they ran again. So essentially, neither one of us got our side plots, because the Sachem's civilian person that was coming to do a truce with him, they never did manage to get that done. And I engaged first, accidentally. So my officer failed his non-engagement orders. And I did get my engagement primary objective, because greater than 2/3 of my opponent's models at the end of this round are actually off the table. But my opponent, through the morale card and just depleting my forces to the point where they just all ran away, essentially killed the civilians. He essentially took out the civilians, and so really we each got our primary objectives. Neither one of us got our secondary. It was a complete bloody slaughter and hilariously fun game, but it ended up being a draw. Okay, well I hope everybody enjoyed this game of Muskets and Tomahawks, and talk to you next time.